telling us a bit of background about yourself? Who is Jack Hinks? Where did it all begin?
Sure. So I'm a singer-songwriter based in Edinburgh. I've been writing and playing my own stuff for about 11 or so years now. Um, and I play in a wide variety of bands a lot of the time. I dabble within the spoken word scene in Edinburgh and the UK. So I often provide music, sometimes live, sometimes like recorded and written for spoken word poets, but I also dabble a little bit in writing poetry as well myself. I'm in a function band with Fiona and Neil of Gefahrgeist, who you've spoken to.
We have it.
So we do weddings and stuff together. Well, when weddings are
Well,
happening.
yeah.
Yeah. So all of this is with a pinch of salt, I guess, because I don't really feel much like a musician right now without being able to gig. I play around in a couple of different local bands as well. I play some bass, I play some slide, and um, just additional sprinkling instruments for an Americana band. Just anything I can get my hands on, really. Yeah. I can't really think of anything particularly poignant to come up with.
I think that covers quite a lot.
Oh, good start then.
And so, for people that haven't listened to your music before,
Mm-hmm.
how would you describe it for them?
um, Usually whenever people ask what sort of stuff I play, I tend to list almost every genre I can think of that isn't like rap or extreme metal. It's sort of I write usually acoustic singer-songwriter style music, usually quite introspective uh, stuff that I can only really write about my own sort of experiences. So a lot of it is like the typical hopeless romantic, like heartbreak and oh, why won't you call back? And how could you have done this to me? Sort of stuff that you usually see from singer songwriters. Um, and then uh, I often record and sometimes when things are open, gig with a full band where I enjoy mucking around with sort of more experimental or aggressive sounds. Like a lot of the stuff that I write tends to be um, quite mixed in terms of genres. It's a bit of a mixed bag. So I hope that when someone listens to one of my songs, they actually like the idea of the rest of them, because usually I tend to write a song um, and give what the song needs in genre instead of, oh well, I'm a rock musician, so everything needs to sound rockier. It's more
Yeah.
like this song's a bit more jazzy, this one's a bit more bluesy, this one's completely acoustic, you know. So I try and dabble with different styles, but hopefully not alienate anyone listening to each of the different songs. With hopefully enough of a style that you could tell that I wrote each of them.
Yeah. Well, do you have a favorite genre to perform, or is it all mixed for you?
I don't know. It's quite one of the ones that I enjoy probably the most is sort of I really like sort of self-indulgent bluesy stuff where there's enough space to just walk around on stage and have a 2-minute guitar solo or something, but there's not always the time and place for that, I guess, in most of the gigs that I do. Because often I gig when we were gigging, I would do a duo set with Fee from Gefahrgeist, and we would just do like uh, harmonizing vocals, acoustic guitar, and violin. And so usually, um, most of the gigs that I do of my own music, just for the sake of whichever venue it is, or it being easier to organize 2 people than 5, we end up usually doing acoustic stuff. So I'm playing like the only, I suppose, harmonic instrument in that setup. So I can't stop and just take a solo because otherwise all the music around everything would stop. But when I'm playing with the band, I enjoy mucking around more with sort of jazzy-ish, bluesy stuff. But I'm as changeable as the day of the week. I think whenever I hear a song or a style that I really like, I go, oh, I should do something like that. Even though it's like, Jack, you don't have a 10-piece ska band. Like, what's going on?
So wing it. It'll be fine.
It'll be fine. We'll do it on the night.
I love that. I love the adaptability though.
Thank you. Hopefully, I don't know if it works as well as it does in my head, but I like to think that it does.
I'm sure it does. So I suppose then, who have been your influences personally?
I guess some of the most influential people. I grew up listening to a lot of Talking Heads and Aerosmith, and just like quite a wide range of styles that my parents used to play. So I've got the sort of more, I guess I really clicked with David Byrne's writing and just how I guess conceptually experimental he was with what he could write songs about, and how you could just make something that sounds so cinematic out of what essentially could be trimmed down to a single, like a solo acoustic song. So I really like the idea of writing a song that says everything it needs to, but then layering up loads more onto it, so you can have, I guess, different versions of it. I really like the sort of more aggressive, chunky rock and stuff like Aerosmith and Foo Fighters. Big fan of Foo Fighters and Dave Grohl. And I think recently, or throughout my, I suppose my adult life, my main influences have been probably John Mayer. Big fan of Jeff Buckley, and Everything is a band that I came to a bit late and went, where have these people been all my life? Like, they're amazing. I was supposed to be seeing them next month in Manchester, but it's been cancelled, obviously. But I love how, I guess, oblique their writing is. I think I really, aside from every member of the band being insanely talented at their instrument, I love how the songwriting just sounds so jarring, and the lyrics are so like unconventional that a lot of people seem to think that it's about nothing, and that, you know, a lot of their lyrics seem almost unintelligible. But I really like how they say something with it sounding like almost nonsense. I think that they're really talented writers, and they've skyrocketed to almost like my favorite band as soon as I heard them. So big fan of them.
Okay. And talking about meanings behind songs and stuff, you tend to have a lot of meaning behind the songs you've written so far. Do you want to
I
tell us a
try,
bit
yeah.
like how important is it for you to have that message?
I think the way I kind of write my songs, I try and write everything so that it's in that same sense oblique enough that people can find whatever meaning they want in it, but also there's the hidden meaning for me, and, you know, maybe a line that I used a particular word because it reminds me of a certain situation or about a person that the song's about or whatever. I like the idea that there's a version for me, but then there's an interpretable enough version for anyone else listening to it that they can, I suppose, wrap whatever skin they want around the skeleton of it, and get something that they want from it without it being like, this is a song about Sarah who broke my heart, you know. But, you know, something that we can all hopefully have in common without it being exclusionary.
Okay. And you've mentioned a few, but you have played quite a few live performances, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
So does any of them stick out for you, and why?
One of them, I think, that stands out the most, I think it was April 2019, I think. It was a fairly last minute gig. I only had about a week or so of prep, and at first I got offered the gig on April 1st, and I thought this has to be a joke. But it turns out it was after 12, so we were safe. But we were offered to open for Chris Shiflett's band in Edinburgh at La Belle Angel, who's, if you don't know Chris Shiflett, he's the lead guitarist of Foo Fighters. So we were like, oh, okay, that's a gig. And it was great. We met him. He was really down to earth and nice. Talked to us about surfing and food, obviously all the best things. And it was, I think, a sold out crowd, if not very full, at La Belle, which felt really nice because it's not a small venue in terms of venues that you can play as like an indie band in Edinburgh. So there were a good few hundred people all packed in, and everyone seemed to be quite receptive, which was really nice. So I think that was, as well as being one of the more high profile gigs that we've done, probably one of my favorite ones as well, because it just seemed to be like a really nice community feel.
Amazing. Foo Fighters played a secret gig when we lived in Brighton
Oh,
in a
nice.
little pub. There was 600 people allowed in the venue.
Oh,
They didn't tell anyone that they were playing, and I found out the next day on the radio that they were 5 minutes away from me.
oh, that must suck.
I was gutted, but apparently they do it quite often. You know, like warm-up gigs before their tour or whatever. But yeah, I was gutted.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like the idea that they can still feel like down to earth and humble enough that they can go out and do a gig for the people, essentially. And whilst it might have an ulterior motive of it's going to be a practice run and we're going to trial a couple of new songs and see how they do, I like the idea that they're not just going to do that behind closed doors and do it in a practice room. They want to still include people, which is nice.
Well, on that gig, the reason it made the news was because you know, the Foo Fighters tribute band over here. They're quite famous, and I've forgotten what they're
I'm
called.
pretty sure I've come across them at one point. Yeah.
Well, they were in the audience, and Dave Grohl got him up on stage to sing.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So it made his day anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was on the
absolutely.
radio the next day, and I was walking to work, and I was like, "You're joking."
That must have been like a knife between the ribs.
Yeah, it was pretty good. But anyway, so obviously COVID happened and stuff. So did you have any plans that has affected?
Well, the day before, I think, the first national lockdown kicked in, I was filming a music video, and I'm glad that we managed to get it done in time. But because of everything being a lot less open, we were doing, I suppose, the editing and stuff. It took a bit longer than we'd hoped because we weren't able to actually meet up and go through some editing notes. So that kind of, I think COVID delayed that release, which then came out in November. And I think we had a couple of ideas of recording a couple of different songs in one of the studios that we go to, and same with Fee as well. She wanted to do a couple of recordings of her music and have us feature in it, but she wasn't able to because of all the restrictions that kept changing. So we thought, safety first, best to not try and push it. But it did, I suppose, scupper some plans. And I think I don't know, I just missed gigging because I feel a lot less like a musician now. So I guess it's had an effect. But one thing that's, I suppose, positive about that is I've been trying to do more production and stuff from home, where I've got a track coming out at the end of this month, which was recorded in the studio pre-COVID, and I've just been organizing it to come out now, but I'm already working on the next singles to come out afterwards, but doing it all myself at home and trying to hone my production skills, which is definitely like a skill that I've wanted to spend more time on, and I guess now I have nothing but time.
Nothing. At least you're putting your time to good use.
Hopefully. There's been a lot of PlayStation as well.
Oh dear. And I ask every musician this. It's just I'm a strong advocate for like mental health and stuff, and obviously with lockdowns, people are struggling, and especially because they keep getting longer and longer and longer, and they're not setting an end date, so to speak.
Yeah.
Have any advice for those people?
I feel any advice I have would probably not be hugely well founded because I'm one of the people struggling with it as well. But I guess I try my best to do something positive or creative most or each days, but when you feel really burnt out and tired, that's your body telling you that you need to take a rest. So it's something I'm still working on, but if if I really feel like I can't do something, or I really don't have the energy to go out and try and write a song or to do lots more promotion work or whatever, I think being able to allow yourself off days and just go, that's it, I'm gonna just rest today and not feel like I need to do something, and just have it as a guilt-free day, I think is an absolute blessing. And I'm still trying to find the balance between doing enough and doing too much, because I always overwork myself. So that's something that I'm actively trying to improve. I'm not great at yet, but it's definitely helping to take some time off and just do something that feels fun and restful, because it's impossible to keep up an insane amount of output when there's nothing going in. And I think that's one thing that it feels more existential, I suppose, with the lockdown. There's a lot of conjecture when this will be over and when we can start doing things, and it's hard to, I suppose, see a light at the end of the tunnel because it keeps getting delayed. So I think if we're in it for the long run, we might as well be comfortable, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think it would be a lot easier if there was that end date, like a plan, so to speak. So if we reach this, then this will happen. If we reach this, this will happen. So people have something to focus on. Because at the minute, it's just this guesswork. Guessing. I got a 5-year-old at home, you know. She's been off school for a month and a half now because it's closed. You know, it's not good.
Yeah, I can imagine that must be really difficult. It sounds, you know, it's easy to say things are super difficult for me, but I'm only really responsible for myself, so I'm definitely not in as difficult a position as, you know, having to figure out how kids are going to get to school, or taking care of them as well whilst everything else is shut down, and them not being able to see their friends. You know, I suppose I'm still in a sense fairly privileged, in the sense that I'm in this flat with my partner, and we don't have, I suppose, other external things that are demanding a lot of time and attention when there's no extra time and energy coming from anywhere else.
It is hard. I mean, we're lucky. Our daughter's amazing. You know, she's a good kid. Takes everything in her stride for a 5-year-old.
Nice.
And she's a distraction as well for me. You know, gives me a focus
true.
other than what's going on in the world. So anyway, enough about that depressing stuff. Since we've been doing these interviews and stuff, I've been looking for like independent artists and all that. How do you think is the best way, apart from the obvious, to support indie artists?
I think one thing that I've because Fee and I have a podcast together where we talk about a lot of like issues that are affecting us as independent musicians, and how to potentially combat that. And I think one of the things that we've come across as a solution, or even though it's not a perfect solution, I think artists supporting artists is one of the best things that you can do, not only for yourself but for everyone else, because especially without gigs and without being able to see or hear people in person, things being online and on social media is essentially the only outlet or platform that we have right now. So it's all too easy to fall into the rut, and I'm guilty of this as well, of using social media to plug your own thing, and then feel, I guess, not great when it doesn't get a much response, because everyone's doing the same thing. Everyone's I guess, if you've got new music coming out, they're wanting to promote it. If they've got old music that it would really help with paying rent to get some extra streams or some more royalties or whatever, some radio play, it's hard to push yourself and promote yourself on this platform and feel like you're getting much of a response, because everyone's doing the same thing and we're all just sort of screaming into our own little void, saying, please listen to me. But if you're not actually listening as well, it's hard to expect a lot of people to listen only as audience members. So I guess we need to be the audience as well as the artists. So I think on your platform, being able to openly support and promote other artists that you work with or artists that you've found in lockdown and is, I think, one of the best ways that you can help, because if all we have is a social media platform right now, at least we can promote everyone on the platform and try and make it better for everyone, instead of, withholding promotion secrets and going, oh, I can't send this person to this blog because they need to write my stuff up first. Like, promoting someone else doesn't take away from yourself. It only strengthens, I suppose, the idea of a community.
I think that some musicians do tend to have a bit of a too competitive. Is that the right word?
Yeah, it's difficult because it is a very competitive industry, and not everyone gets the response that they should from their work or from themselves as a person. But it does sort of at first feel a little bit counterintuitive to go, hang on, promoting someone else doesn't take away from myself. And it's like, if everyone plays by the same rules, then it'll be better for everyone. But it's difficult to know exactly the right way to promote yourself on a platform that's run entirely by algorithms that you can't really please as a human,
Well, yeah. So where can people listen to that podcast then? Is it online?
So the podcast's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and it's also on my website if you're not, I suppose if you're not on either of those platforms. But it's called Line Check Podcast, or like Line Check with Jack and Fee, where we were doing it every week, but we realized that we've been getting a bit burnt out trying to manage our own singles that were coming out, because Fee's releasing a lot of new stuff as herself and as Gefahrgeist. And I've got a couple of songs coming up, and we realized that it wasn't sustainable to be doing it every week and trying to find new things and new tips for indie musicians. So we figured we'd scale it back so that when we do speak and we record an episode, we've actually got something useful to talk about, instead of feeling like we just need to put something out because we want to keep it useful and high quality. So we're doing new episodes as and when, maybe every month or so instead of every week. But we've got about, I think, 16 or so episodes out already. So there's plenty of a backlog to listen through if people are looking for something like that.
Perfect. And you just mentioned then a new single that's out the 26th, is it?
Yes, correct.
Can you tell us about that?
So this single is, I suppose, one in a release of a series of 5, and the previous release that came out on the 20th of November last year, which is called Jigsaw, was the first in those 5. They're intentionally jumbled into a different order, but I'm trying to release one song that each represents one of the stages of grief. So by the end, there'll be 5. And my intention with it is, if I can then release it as an EP and have it in the, I suppose, traditional order of the stages of grief, but I'm intentionally putting them out in a different order because I think grief is something that doesn't always feel very linear, and often it doesn't play by the sort of traditional rules. So my plan is to put this out, and hopefully, if there's a decent response, I'd like people to tell me what order they think works best for them, if the music actually represents how they feel for each stage. So I started with Acceptance, which was what Jigsaw was meant to represent. And this next track that's coming out on the 26th is called Plasticast, and that's going to represent anger. So it's going to be a lot more aggressive, I guess, for want of a better word.
Perfect. And will that be released on Spotify? Or
yeah, all the usual streaming places. Yeah, I've got an animated music video coming out with it as well, which I'm excited about because I've only ever done, I suppose, playthrough or usually like interpretive music videos, but I've never had anything animated. So I'm really excited to see how this one is received.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, it's done by Tyler Mortimer of Blank Page Digital Art, and he's amazing. He's done the videos for Gefahrgeist as well. He's a good friend, so excited to see how it goes, and how people respond to it.
Yeah. And obviously post-COVID, whenever that is, what are your big plans?
I think I mainly just want to get back to doing what I was doing before. I mean, I was working, I had a part-time job, like 3 or 4 days a week, depending on the week, alongside gigging and practicing and playing weddings at the weekends. And I quit my job on Christmas Eve in 2019, being like, cool, I'm going to do it. I'm going to be a full-time musician. This is going to happen. And then lockdown hit like 2 or 3 months later. So I've currently had a fairly stunted experience of what it is to be a full-time artist. Maybe this is exactly what it's like to be a full-time artist, just being at home all the time. But yeah, so when gigs and stuff are open, I want to actually hit the ground running and not only get back to doing weddings, because I really enjoy playing covers with everyone in my band is a close friend, so it's always a really fun night regardless of what the gig is. But I'd really like to get back to doing my own music as well and see what I can do with some local gigs and collaborating with people. Just more of the same, but with hopefully less time spent in a shop.
Well, hopefully it won't be too long now.
Hopefully,
And
we'll see.
If people want to contact you or show their support, where's the best place to contact you?
Best place, I suppose, is whatever social media platform or website you feel the best on. But my platforms, sorry, my profiles on all these platforms are essentially the same handle, which is at Jack Hinks Music, Hinks spelled Hinks. And I've got a website which is just jackhinks.co.uk, and on there's my email address if you want to get in touch directly through email. Anywhere is great. I've got a Bandcamp. All my music is on Spotify and iTunes, and it's all in the usual places. If you look, I've not got a hugely common name, so if you search for my name, you'll probably find what you're looking for without too much hassle.
I found you. I think you was first, actually.
Yes. Yes, it works.
And right, before we say our goodbyes then, is there anything you would like to add?
I guess if you're a musician in the same situation, or regardless of what medium, if you're a creative and you're having a rough time, then know that you're not on your own and you don't need to put out a lot of stuff for someone else all the time. And I was having a chat with my partner this morning, and we were talking about the frustrations of trying to put out so much more to meet some form of made up quota. And I think this time, as difficult as it is, could be an opportunity, I guess, to really see what still works for you and what makes you happy. So if there are things that you're doing for someone else or something that you're putting a lot of effort into that doesn't feel like you're getting the response you want anymore, maybe now's a good time to, I suppose, strip that back and find what it is that you're interested in and what it is that gives you joy and energy, and focus on that.
Fabulous. I think that's very good.
Thank you for having me. It's been lovely to chat.
Yeah, and thank you for taking the time. We really appreciate it. And I will pop all the links underneath the video.
Magic. Thank you.
Like that, and all that magical internet stuff. And thank you so much for chatting to us.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me, Jenny.
Time is a thief in doctor's coat, moonlighting shifts and swapping notes. Uneasy scalpel in her glove, too deep to keep what I had loved.
Abundance stops without demand.
She tells me, around the room her eyes they beady scan. Nothing of value left to take, everything gone that was misplaced. The grappling hooks still pierce my legs, but I have shed the ropes and stayed. I'm tired of keeping you inside, burst out my ribs in search of life, too close to my heart to ever see. I'm a casualty of who you want to be. Back down to nothing. It's like a splinter in your blood.
Make yourself at home inside a cage,
Cauterized and stapled to my age.
too young to know just what you had, too colorblind to see the flag. I'm tired of keeping you inside, burst out my ribs in search of life.